Welcome to the San Diego County Fair, the International Photography and Digital Arts Exhibition. I'm Stephen Burns. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and see my presentation. Titled Toning It Down. I'm recording this, as I mentioned earlier. I'm going to send this to both the Photoshop User Group. I'm the president of the San Diego Photoshop Users Group. How many people are not a member? Raise your hand. Good. Okay. That's not good. That's most of your hands going. That's not good. Everybody here should be a member. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to flip this little page over, and you're going to come up and you're going to give me your email, your name and your email address. Okay? It's free to join, and we have monthly meetings. We've been around a very long time. We used to meet live in person, but then COVID hit, and the meeting locations that we were at, which were college campuses, were decided they didn't want to have user groups in there because of the threat of COVID. So we decided to go online, which I'm glad we did because we ended up getting more of an international audience. So all of our meetings are not on Zoom; they're on Twitch. Okay, so Twitch is this international streaming platform. So when you join the user group meeting, I'll give you instructions on how to access Twitch. You don't need to load anything on your computer. You just go to your URL that I give you, and you get to watch the meeting. And you can participate. You can ask questions and give the presenter a hard time, whatever you want to do. So, all right, today's presentation, toning it down. So I've been talking to Amithel, the vice coordinator, about a presentation I thought would be very, very important because I'm seeing a lot of great work here on the walls. But I'm also noticing that the post-processing, a lot of artists are struggling with. So I figured I'm gonna do a little more of an advanced approach to dealing with how to master your vision in your images by learning to control your tonal values. Values is your black and white information. So when we're dealing with any type of color imagery, there are two things that we're dealing with, and no matter what type of art that we do. One is your values, your others is your hues. Your hues are all your color, your values is all your black and white information. So as photographers, we work backwards. I want to give a little bit of a quick example of what I mean. We work backwards as photographers. So when we get the camera, we're getting color instantly. So we're working from color all the time. If we go back to the days of Ansel Adams, anybody here not know who Ansel Adams is? And I'm only asking that question because I teach at 3 different colleges, and the young students there have no idea who Ansel Adams is.
They're too young.
They're too young, evidently. So I want to talk about how to master the details in your images by learning to recognize and control your extreme aspects of all images, which is your shadows and your highlights. Okay. Let me do just a simple little example. I want to go check another folder here. I want to go see if I have. There we go. That's what I want. All right, now. Go and find that's all right. I'm not going to go back to this one here and just work here. All right, let's work with this one here. All right, I'm inside a bridge. So when you're working in Photoshop, I'm navigating always using bridge. Now what the workflow here is identical to Lightroom. All Lightroom is bridge and Adobe Camera Raw put together in one program. Okay, so this will be the exact same workflow, no different, same nomenclature, same organization of the tools that you're going to see. All right, I'm going to open this up, Command or Control R inside of Bridge. So Bridge is just a way, once again, just to preview everything. And with Control R, it's going to open it up into Adobe Camera Raw. I just want to make a quick little point here that what we're dealing with mostly is actually I'm going to grab another image here. Let me grab this one up here. I think it'll be a much better example because that's a lot more Command R. And that is a raw file. So that was a JPEG. Okay, so we're dealing with shadows, midtones, and highlights. Shadows, midtones, and highlights. The problem with most of the work that we do is that we let color get in our way, right? I'm going to pull the color out. And we're going to look at the values only. And we're going to look at the extreme shadows, and we're going to look at the extreme highlights. And we're going to see, do we have detail here? And you guys are going to tell me, do we have detail in shadows and highlights? Yes, no, maybe so, yes. All right. Can we get more detail? Okay, so let's do it. I always like to tackle the shadow details first. All right, toning it down, right? With the shadows are often toned down too far. So I need to pull up some of those values, those mid-tone values or lower mid-tone values to get details in the shadows. So Control plus, getting close. Take a look at my shadows here. And let's see if we can pull up more detail. So I want to be working right up here in the light section. The light represents your values only, your shadows, midtones, highlights. We're going to go to our shadows, and I'm going to pull them up to pull the detail out of there. Okay? Instantly, you're thinking, okay, but that's too flat. This is a good thing. It should be very flat. Now we go to the highlights. And if you look at the highlights, we have detail here, right? But there's more detail in there that we're ignoring. So the shadow sliders only is going to deal with your lower tone values. These values right here. If you look up here in the histogram, these are the values that slider is dealing with. The highlights are going to be dealing with these values up here. So now we're going to go to the highlights and we're going to pull that down and see how much detail we can pull back in there, right? Now, it looked like we were able to pull a little bit, but let's see what happens if we go to the whites, which are the extreme highlights, right? I can pull just a little bit back in, and that's fine. I'll pull this on down. If I hit Control 0 to see everything, what I'm getting is a very, very flat image. This also affords me the ability to actually take my exposure, which is dealing with your shadows, midtones, and highlights equally. So I can make them all brighter or make them all just a little bit darker. Okay. Now, I also have, as we have the whites for the extreme highlights, we also have, kind of getting a little closer, we also have the blacks for the extreme darker values. So with the blacks, I can bring them down richer, or I can bring them up brighter, which is what I'm going to do. Okay, so now you can see in these lower shadow details, we have a lot more information. The highlight information, we have a lot more information. So we tone down the highlights and we control the tone, and we brought up the shadow details. This is a good thing. All right, why? Because we have something in here that's fairly recent compared to most of the sliders inside of Raw and or Adobe or Lightroom. And that slider is called dehaze. Dehaze is going to target all your extreme dark values. So let's understand what dehaze does. If we go out to the landscape, you set your camera up, and you have this mountain landscape going way in the background, how does the horizon look as you get further in the background? Excellent, hazy. What does haze do to your image?
blurs it.
It blurs it and what? Flattens it out. What values is it affecting in your image that is making it flat? No. What?
Contrast.
We know that, but what value specifically? The darker values. So the haze will not touch your brighter values. It only touches your darker values. That's what dehaze does. So if I go to dehaze and bring it to the left, you get haze. It targets the darker values only and bring them up in value. If we go back the other way, we get dehazed.
Clearly.
Right, but what's happening here also is sharper looking. Starts to get a little sharper. Now, to me, it's still a little bright. So, by seeing the values only, you're actually able to see what's really going on in your image because the color it gets in the way. It becomes a crutch. So if I go to my exposure, pull it down a little bit more like that, I think that could work. Okay. Now I'm going to also we have some other sets of sliders called effects. They're important because when we went in here and started playing around with our shadows and highlights, so let me kind of explain this or talk about this more. Exposure, shadows, midtones, and highlights. Highlights only, whites only, darks only. The same thing here. Contrast is the devil. Don't use it. So by playing with the shadow and the highlight details, we sacrifice the midtone information. We flattened it out. So we brought in the dehaze, and I'm going to bring it back just a little bit. All right, and you'll see why in just a moment, because what clarity is going to do is it's going to add contrast to one area and one area only, and that is your midtones. So if I pull this in closer, go to my clarity, bring it over to the right a little bit. See what it's doing? Texture increases the contrast in the highlights only, right? Midtones only for clarity, highlights only for texture. Let's bring this down. Okay, you see what it's doing. See? Did we add sharpening to this at all? No, don't need to, because we're learning to master the values. All right, so we got some great details in our highlights. We're able to tone that down a little bit. Now let's see. I want to show you one last thing. I want to just to make my point. Color. Why color is a crutch? Because this is what you need to be working in to control your shadows and highlights. I'm going to give you better examples after this. Okay. I'm going to go over here back to my saturation slider. Saturation zeroed out is dead center, right? So watch when I pull it a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. Interesting. A little bit there. So what's happening? I don't need as much saturation. Why?
Because when you were in the black and white tones, you did all the work in that. So you don't need to do it now that you're in color.
That's right. Now this is going to bring us to my next point. I'm going to bring this over a little bit more and see what happens. Now see what happens if I bring it all the way back to zero. Way done. All right. Now, as an artist, what does this really mean to you? This means that you now have a lot more information still in your file. So when you print this, you're going to get a nice, beautiful, pristine print. You got more values in here, or more information in this file. That is why you're starting to see a lot more details. Look, it's a lot more depth, a lot more details. So we dealt only with the values. Now, in Photoshop, what's really going on is this. Photoshop doesn't work in RGB. Photoshop doesn't work in CMYK. Photoshop works only in LAB, and that's where this is going to lead us to. lightness, and color. So let's go ahead and I'm going to click done. All right. And what this is going to do is going to save the sidecar file with all the information that I did. Let's go ahead and close that out. I don't know why it's not closing out, but I guess it's thinking or something. Um, okay, something's stuck in here. Let's try this. Ah, interesting. Exactly. Yeah, I know. I hate to do that, but I may have to do that. So Command Alt Delete, just take that out of there because it does not want to. Wait a minute, something just happened. Let's see if we can get it to do it now. All right, let's go to done. Ah, wonderful. Okay, wonderful. Okay, let's see before and after real quick. I'm going to Command C, Command V. Copied it. Go right over here, right click, come down here to Develop Settings, and tell it to clear those settings because this is a raw file. It's all non-destructive. Clear the settings and there. That's what we had. So that's the before, after.
Can you do it side by side?
Side by side. Yeah, I can do it side by side. Before, after. And if I select them both, I can do this. Be easier. Go.
That's good.
A lot more details.
Yeah.
A lot more details. Okay, now let's go do something fun. All right, here we go. Let's go over to this one here. Let's open that up. This one's going to be a fun one. And we've got a problem with our highlights. We've got information in here that we're not going to get back, period. Okay? It's getting close. I took this up in San Francisco at one of the I forget that fort. That's Fort Mason, I think it is up there. And this blown out. I'm not going to get information back. If I go to my info pad here, right, and let my cursor hover over this area, and you look at the RGB values up there, it's 255. We're done. We're not getting anything back in here. So what I need to do is learn to isolate those values in such a way that I can produce detail back into that area. Right? All right. So a good workflow in Photoshop is duplicate your first layer. Anybody remember the shortcut? What was that? Oh, the shortcut to duplicating your layer? Command J. There. All right, so I've duplicated the layer. But yes, eventually we're going to get to the black and white portion. So now what I want to do is I want to create something that's going to isolate these highlights. I'm going to use the help of black and white information from what? From the channels here. These channels are kind of small, so let me right click right on the bottom and click large to go larger. And if you take a look at this, we have a red channel, a green channel, and a blue channel. Now this is interesting because all the information that I need to create a mask is already built right here in this image. All the details are there. So let me utilize the details that are already there to create my mask. And I'm going to utilize what's called my layer blend modes. Okay, so all layers, we have blend modes right up here. It says normal. If I go down each of these, you're going to get a different effect. Why are these important? And then we start covering a lot of this in the intermediate class. And then I'm also going to show you some of the stuff we're doing in more advanced class. But if you go down here, you start to see as we blend them against one another, we start to create what looks like a mask. This is a good thing. All right, so here's the workflow. I'm going to tell Photoshop to take this layer, blend it with itself in such a way that I'm going to make all the values here darker and make all the highlights brighter. The reason I went to the channels is because each channel represents a certain type of information. The red channel is where all your contrast is harbored. The green channel is where most of your midtones are harbored, and the blue channel is where a lot of the noise and the atmospheric noise and the ultraviolet light is going to be. So I want to find out which one of these channels is going to separate all the values from the highlights the best. If I go to this one, or the blue channel. It looks like to me the blue channel is going to be the best. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to duplicate that because I don't want to screw up my original color, right? So I'm going to duplicate that channel. I'm going to click it, drag it down here to the left side of the garbage can, and duplicate it, call it blue copy. And we're going to work with that channel only. Now what I'm going to do is go up to my image menu, and we're going to go to a command that's going to tell Photoshop to blend this with itself in such a way that it's going to get closer to a mask. Image menu, apply image, and here, by default, it applies it with the multiply blend mode. Now, if we look at the blend modes, the top set, and this is what we talk about in our intermediate class, represents maintaining your darker values. Your second set maintains your brighter values. Your third set increases contrast. What do I want? What's the goal here? Yeah? Add more contrast, right? So make everything dark. So if I go to the multiplier, that could work. That could work there too. That color burn. Oh, that works even better. The linear burn. So I'm going to go with that one. And click OK. Now, I might want to do it one more time. I'm going to go to my image, apply image. Okay. It's going to remember the last one that you did, which it did. I think this could work. I can even try something like multiply. That works too. Click OK. There it is. All right. Now, here we go. I want to clean this up. I want everything dark except for these highlighted areas on the steps. I'm going to hit the B key for my brush. And I'm going to resize my brush here. Let me go to my brush. There we go. Resizing my brush. I'm using a Wacom stylus, or a stylus with that I can resize my brush. I'm going to keep it right about there, and take a look at my foreground and background color. I'm working in a channel, an alpha channel. Alpha channel only recognizes black and white information. So the only color you're going to get is black and white. But if I give the brush itself also a blend mode, watch what happens. Go to instead of a normal blend mode for the brush, give it overlay. Now watch what's going to happen. What's going to happen is if I paint with black, only the black is being affected and it ignores the white completely, so I can be sloppy. Isn't that cool? If I switch the X key to white, now the white will be brightened and the darks will be ignored, like so. So I'm just going to go back, hit the X again, come back over and paint the darkers much darker, much darker. Just do the best I can. I think it's going to make an adequate mask. What do you think? So now we've just separated my highlights so we can tone down just those highlights. The key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. Selections, masks, and channels are exactly the same thing. They're identical. So I've made an alpha channel. All that means is that it's an additional channel other than your original RGB. So I'm going to come up here to the RGB and select it to see everything. And if selections, masks, and channels are the same thing, I should be able to make a selection from this, right? I'm going to hold down the Control key on my keyboard and click on it, and there it is. I've made merging ants. So what does that mean? Well, that could mean one of two things. With that selection, I could create what we call an adjustment layer to control the highlights. Let's do it. Right down here, the black and white half circle on the bottom, and we get into adjustment layers in the intermediate class. We'll go to curves, right? And what curves allow you to do is to brighten or darken things. So I'm making an adjustment and you're seeing nothing happen. Why? You're seeing nothing happening with curves.
Because you haven't moved the thing.
Only happening in the area you've selected.
That's exactly correct. It's only happening in the area that I selected, and that area that I selected is already white. I can't do anything, right? All right, let's go do something else. Well, all right, if that's the case, what can I do? Let's delete this layer. I just wanted to make a point. Let's utilize part of the image to blend into it. If this is concrete, this should be supposed to be concrete. Some of this concrete texture should work. So I'm going to come over here to L key for the lasso tool, and I'm going to go just select a big little chunk like this. Key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. Selections and masks are exactly the same thing. I have it selected. Now I can put this on its own layer. Command or Control J. There it is on its own layer. Now I can hit the V key for the move tool and move that around where I want it like that. Maybe I'll make it a little bigger. Control T, something like this. Make it a little bigger so it covers it like that. Okay? She's shaking her head like, what the hell are you doing? So what we're going to do, we already made our selection, right? Control, click, get my selection. Go to the layers, come down to the bottom, and we're going to give this a layer mask. Boom. Okay. So if I get closer, still doesn't look right, right? I can adjust the edges of that mask. The mask edge is a little bit too sharp, and that's fine. So what we'll do is we'll blur it out just a little bit. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur real quick. And see a little bit of a softness there. Maybe I'll take it more like this. Oh, there we go. That works a little bit better. Now what we're going to do is we're going to apply a layer blend mode to this so we can blend that texture in with the highlights. We're going to do so by changing the layer blend mode of that particular concrete layer. So drop it down and you tell me what looks good. That one, that one, or that one, not that one, not that one. None of those are going to work. That's a lighter. Maybe that one right there. Let's see what the overlay heart. Oh, that's pretty good. That looks good. Let's try that one. Linear light. Linear light's not bad either. Should I go linear light or overlay or hard light? Let's see how the two look. They kind of look very similar. We'll go to hard light. Okay.
Curiosity, could you have copied the front of the step for each one and then lifted it up onto the top?
I could have. I could have. But that was like a little more work.
Different types of stone, though, is what I was noticing. That's all.
Well, that's a good point. She has a very good point. The point is, we'll do one step.
I was just curious if it was even possible. He knows like this program better than I do. So.
But what I was going to do, we'll finish this one and we'll do your idea. So we'll select this one. We'll just bring down the opacity of the layer a little bit right there to make it blend in a lot better. So it looks like it'll look a lot more natural. Now I've got little areas in here I have to deal with, so I can come up to here. Now this is linked together. Hit my move tool, and I can move this around. See? All right. Now, if we use your suggestion, okay, which is, we'll do the same thing. We'll turn this one off. We'll go grab one of these steps here. So I'll just go over to the lasso tool, just sloppily grab one of those steps, right? Because I've already created the mask. So From here, I'm going to hit Command J because I'm in the proper layer. That's on top. I can move tool, move that however I want. So this here, I'm going to have to kind of, monkey around with it a little bit. So I'll hit my Command T, right? And I might want to kind of play around with this a little, stretch it out a little bit. Just pull it out past like so, something like that. Go ahead, go back to your channels, Command click, get this, right? And then go and give it a layer mask there and see if it works. So from here, I want to change the layer blend mode, right? So overlay, soft light, hard light, there we go. Vivid light, linear light, we'll go linear light this time, and then bring down the opacity.
Now you got that thing on the rail that looks funky.
Yep. But this is the beautiful thing about masking is if I select the mask itself, I hit my B key for the brush. Anything with black will conceal, anything with white reveals. So I'm going to paint with black. So bring the brush down. I'm going to undo what I just did. What did I just do? Let me go back to here and go back to my linear light. Got it. Bring down the opacity a little bit like so. There we go. That's a little nicer. Oops, let me go back to there. I did it again. Let me go back and get that back down to linear light. And I'm going to bring down the brush size. There we go. All right, and I'm going to paint with black on the mask. And I need to get out of overlay blend mode and go to normal. See, I can take that away. All right, get out of there. Get out of there. See, my pen is acting kind of weird. So there we go. So I can come up in here and paint it. Well, yeah, it is. Actually, I'm blaming the pen because it is the pen. There we go. So I can paint that away if I want to, right? All right. So let's go do do another image. It's the escape key here, and so you get the point. So if I turn this one off, turn that one on, you get the point that there are different ways in which to deal with toning down these highlights or adding details back into the highlight areas. Let's do something else. Let's go have some more fun here. All right, this one you're gonna love. Here's one I like. It's see, the pen is acting kind of weird, so I'm going to use the mouse. I'm going to scroll down, and I've got this one right about here. Okay, let's go ahead and double click that one, open it up, and we've got these highlights we want to control. There's a lot of different ways to do it, right? But I'm going to kind of learn to isolate the highlights using my values. I'm going to start by duplicating a layer, Command J, and then I'm going to go take a look at my channels. And I'm going to go to my red channel, my green channel, and my blue channel and find out which one kind of separates that from the water highlights as best as possible. And it looks like if I go to red, I still have a lot of highlights up in here that's competing with the waves. The green does a little bit better. I'm still starting to go down a little darker value. And the blues does, let me see, greens and blues. Probably the blues, huh? Again. No, I'm going to go with the green. The green seems to darken the sky down a little bit more from the water. So I want to separate the highlights from everything else. Duplicate the green channel. Place it right down here in this icon to the left side of the garbage can on the bottom of your layers. And I have my alpha channel here. Now, from here, I'm going to go to my image menu, apply image, and apply a layer blend mode that's going to help me do the job even better. By default, it goes to multiply, but I'm going to go play with these and see which one is going to give me the best. So overlay, hard light seems to work real well. It's making everything else darker. The waves are standing out more bright. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to do it again. I didn't finish the job, so I'm going to go back to image, apply image. Okay, there we go. So we got pretty good separation here. Now we're going to use our good old friend, the paintbrush once again. If I get my stylus to work properly, I'll be happy, which it's not working today. So, all right, we'll use the mouse. So I'm going to enlarge this, change the blend mode of the brush to overlay, paint with black. What does that mean if I paint with black? Well, not the selections. We darken down the dark values. We're gonna darken down the dark values and not the highlights. If I come down here, it'll touch the darker values, but not the highlights, which allows me to quickly do stuff like this. If I switch to X key to white, now what it's going to do is allow me to brighten up the brighter values here. And I'm going to keep them kind of where they are. I don't really want to blow them out so much. I want to maintain some of those little values in between the highlights. They're important. So if I want to edit this even more, I can add a Control M, which is your curves, or go to my image menu, adjustment, curves, and I can control this by bringing down the C shadows. I think that does a good job there. Bring up the highlights a little bit. And those are the areas that we're going to affect. All right, we're going to leave it alone. Now, how am I going to tone down this water? This is a slick little technique. If I go, I'm going to duplicate this layer once again, and I'm going to change the blend mode of this layer. Because by changing the blend mode, it's going to produce a certain type of additional detail. That blend mode is going to be multiply. See? See what multiply does to the highlights? It just gives them a lot more detail in there. So if I get in close, let me just do this for you. I'm going to get in close, a little bit closer like this. So let's see that. Zoom in a little bit. And we come over here and we're going to multiply. Look at that detail. Right? In the multiply channel or the multiply blend mode. And I can scroll down to see what these other ones will give me. The lighten section brightens things up, so I don't want that. This just adds more contrast, so that doesn't really help. But the multiply really affects your highlights quite well. Look at that. What, not impressed?
Oh, no, I was thinking it makes it more dynamic.
A lot more dynamic.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Sorry.
I was just teasing you.
Okay.
All right. All right, so here we go. We already made the mask, right? It's right there. The key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. Selections, masks, and channels are exactly the same thing. So Command click or Control click, there's my selection. Highlight the RGB so I can see everything. Come back over here, and by adding a layer mask, it honors that selection and creates the mask. Boom. Look at that. So we have to edit the mask a little bit, add a little bit of Gaussian blur to soften up the edges so that the edges blend. Now watch what's going to happen. I'm going to get in close. Okay. And we're going to come over here to the filter. We're going to go to the blur, and we're going to go to Gaussian blur and watch what happens. Ooh, did you see that? I'm going to move it over to the right a little more. It gets sharper. Before, after. Before, after. Okay. And why did it get sharper when I added the Gaussian blur? Because we're not blurring the image, we're blurring the mask. And we tone down those highlights exactly the way we might like it. Want to see more?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So let's go to one that's not so extreme and improve it using these similar concepts. Okay, so let me go ahead, let me save this here, and I'll save it under my toning down as tutorial 002. There we go. And click OK. All right, let's close that out. Let's close that one out. And let's close that one out. Let's go back to bridge. All right, so let's do this. Let's go get one. Let me see. It was right up. Oh, there we go. That one right there. Okay. Let's do a whole workflow here. Let's start off in Adobe Camera Raw or Lightroom, your choice. And color gets in your way. I'm going to unplug this and plug it in and see if I can get it to work properly. All right, let's see what this does. Yes, okay, that worked. All right, here we go. This is going to be fun. Color gets in your way. Get the color out of your way. Boom. How does that look as a black and white?
It needs some work.
Shallow. Needs some work, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to come down here and grab that, pull that down a little bit, is we're going to work these values. So what you need to be thinking about is bringing details in your highlights, because what you want to, what's happening here is this looks flat and boring and blasé because all the values are too close to one another. You want to pull them further apart, giving each value its own distinct character.
You want them to be unique and not married.
That's exactly right. Well, unique and married. It's always a good thing.
Yeah.
So, just saying. That's right. Let's pull up the shadows details. Let me get in closer so it makes it easier to see. Let's get in here. Control plus to zoom in. Go to your shadow details. That's the areas you should tackle first. Shadow details. Pull it up. Okay. All right.
Let's start with exposure.
So someone just mentioned he would have started with exposure. Why did I not start with exposure, do you think?
Imagine you're going to tell.
Oh my goodness.
Well, you could debate him. You have your degree in this too.
All right, we'll take it right back to where it was normally. The reason I didn't go to exposure is because your middle gray here looked pretty good.
Okay.
It's a medium gray all through here. It looked pretty neutral. Not that I'm right or wrong, it's just that it looks pretty neutral, so I'm not going to bother that. What's bothering me is that these darker, deeper areas, it's got some blocked up shadow details, so that's what I'm concerned about. Okay, so I'm gonna get in close. And then to prove my theory, I got in close to zoom in to kind of see what's in there and see if I can pull out a little more detail in these other areas. In fact, I'll get in even closer. Right? So I'm gonna go to my shadows and pull them on up. See, we pulled out something in there. You can see it, but there's more to be pulled out. So that's where I will go down to my black slider. Right? I can make it darker in or bring them up like this, like that. That's what you want. Okay. So by doing that, that has now brought up the values everywhere, and which I might consider bringing exposure down, but maybe not yet, not quite yet. Not until I deal with the highlights. So let's pull back and let's deal with the highlights. Okay. Take the highlights and give them more detail. Let me see if I have. You can see right in here, all this area in here is being affected. So I'm going to bring a little bit more. I might even go to the whites and play with that just a little bit. Okay. Very flat now. That's a good thing, because now that we have brought up a lot of detail in the shadows, a lot of detail in the highlights, now we're going to go down and utilize a good old friend. Where are you? We'll just right down here in effects. Dehaze. Haze. Dehaze.
Put that at what, 40?
So the question is, am I putting on 40 or 50 or whatever?
Yeah.
I don't give a damn what the number is.
I think it depends on the picture.
I'm
probably,
looking
right?
at it. Every picture is going to be unique. That's exactly correct. Everyone will be unique. Use your creative eye and look at it, right? Um, the numbers do mean something. I'm not going to get into it today. Okay. But what I'm looking at it right now is looking at how the image looks. So if I pull this down, I'm looking at how this gets deeper tonal contrast, which is going to help for isolating this beach creatively and isolating it from these areas. So I'll bring the dehaze probably more like that. Then I'm going to go to clarity, mid-tone contrast, right? It's starting to look a little better. I'm glad I didn't go up to exposure and mess with that yet, right? Right? Because the reason I'm thinking that way is I want to control my shadows and my highlights independently. I don't need exposure a lot of times, and I definitely don't need contrast. So if I come over to clarity, see that? It's pulled out a lot more detail. I got it darker in here, but at least I've got it darker with detail in there. Okay. All right. Now we have one last area, which is highlight contrast, which is texture. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. All right. So this looks a lot more appealing than what it used to look like as a black and white. Now let's go back to our saturation slider. Let's see what's going to look like now. Pull a little bit more right to here. A little bit to there. A little bit to there. There's zeros right here. Zeros right there. I'm going to bring it a little bit more to right about there. Right? Now, we're not done. We're going to go to open. Okay. Hit the F key. I'm going to show you more advanced stuff. That was beginning level stuff. You learn, the sliders in Adobe Camera Raw in the beginning class. Now we're going to go to some more advanced stuff. Let's duplicate this layer. Command J. We're going to take this layer, we're going to alter this into a smart object, which makes this layer completely non-destructive. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go inside this layer. So watch, don't be writing notes. Watch this. We're going to go inside this area. I'm watching you. Double clicking. I'm inside the layer. Let's go change the color space. Image mode LAB. Remember I told you from the very beginning of the class?
What does lab stand for?
Lightness and 2 channels of color. Watch. Now when we go to the channels, we don't have RGB anymore. We've got our lightness channel, which is where all of your values are. Photoshop separates them. Remember when we went into Adobe Camera Raw and we took out the color? This is the way Photoshop works. So when you took out the color, it now only sees the values. It only works there. It avoids the color. In RGB, when you mess with contrast control of any type, you're screwing up your color. You're destroying your color. So you're destroying more information, more pixels. So now we take a look at this, and this is going to be interesting. I want to improve upon this because I'm looking at this. I'm thinking that not enough contrast. So let's see if I can improve this a little bit. So I'm going to duplicate this this lightness channel there, and I'm going to work on this. Now I'm going to bring. Let's go to image. Okay, I can't do apply image here. Got it. I understand. Or maybe we can do it this way. I need to take this and put this into a layer. LAB has limitations. The apply image, it will not work in LAB. It will, but some things that I need to apply will work in layers. So I'm going to take this, Command A, which means select all. Command C is copy, and then go to my, make a new layer. Command V, we paste it into layers. Okay. If we're in layers, again, no apply image. Oh, yes, I do. I've got apply image. Okay, good. All right. Select it. And by default, it's applying a hard light. Let's see. I got that there. That's kind of nice. Linear burn. Multiply. Let me take a look at overlay. I think multiply is going to work best. It's giving me a nice, richer, deeper detail. But I don't have to use 100%. I can use minute amounts of multiply, right? Like that. Okay. Maybe like 40%. Okay. And then from here, I think what I'll do is maybe add a little more contrast. So I'm going to come over and hit Command M or Image Menu, Adjustment. Just add a quick little curves here. And just add a little more richness in here. Maybe add a little more brightness. Clip the brightness just a little bit, something like that. We're working in values. All right, so I'm going to go back to my original layer. I'm going to duplicate it again because I've screwed up the second one here. And I've go to my channels. Let me come back to here, there. See, there's layer 2. If we go to the channels for layer 2 has a lightness channel. Okay? So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to take, let's take a look at the channel for this one here. So that is the lightness channel for the standard photograph. If we click on this one here, that's the lightness channel that we want. Okay? So let me turn this one off temporarily. Select this image, go to the channels, go to the levels. We want to pull the lightness channel from layer 2 to put it inside of this one. This is more of an advanced concept, and I'm recording this, so don't worry about notes. So we have that one selected. We go to the channels. We go to that channel, and we're going to go to Image, Apply Image. Okay, and we want to go get the source is going to be what?
Layer 2.
Layer 2. Oops, sorry, not there, but here. Layer 2. There it is. So now we put in layer 2, and it may be a little bit too much. It's like a little bit dark. So I can add an opacity, kind of bring the opacity like that, something like that. Okay. Now, there it is. Way better.
See the difference between the trees and the background green stuff. It's not all blending together.
It's not all blended together. Look at that. So a lot more richness because I haven't touched the color. I've only touched the values. So if I hit the Alt key and hit this eyeball here, we can just do before. Before. That's what we had. We brought it in. After.
Big difference.
Before.
Very rich now.
Very rich. Control. Toning down everything. And look at the detail you get in sand. Look at that detail in that sand.
After the before.
Before.
Oh yeah.
You're losing that detail, right? So your post-processing skills are so critical to making a difference between something that's considered good and something that's considered great. And there's all these little things that matters. So now keep this in mind, we are still in what? LAB inside the smart object. This whole thing is non-destructive. So I need to save it. Command S, that saves it. Command W will close this file. It's saving. It's saying it will be saved as a PSB, I guess. I don't know why it's the PSB. It's not that large. So you close it out, it'll go back to the RGB file because you can't print an LAB file. And there we are. So now we come back and we're back in our RGB. So I showed you a way to navigate between RGB and LAB to control all your values and tones. Right? But if you want to learn more, you have to take the Photoshop class.
Always a catch.
There's always a catch, so you might as well just catch it.
If we take the class, we might be able to afford Photoshop.
No, you can afford Photoshop because they brought it down to $10 a month.
Oh wow. What was it before?
What was it?
$2,400.
What was it, Steven? $800?
A month?
No, for buying that. Yeah, $800, right?
No, when he
Something
bought
like that.
15 years ago, it was $1,800.
1800? Yeah. It's $9.99 and that includes what? Photoshop and Lightroom and Behance. So you can afford it. So give me your name, your email address, and your cell number. I'll call you. We'll get you involved. It's a 5-week class. It's a 5-week class. We meet by Zoom. And they're on Thursday evenings, 7 o'clock p.m. to 9 p.m. So they're after work hours. So you can also take one of these. So this is all the classes on one of these. So it's the Photoshop beginning, intermediate, and also the photography workshops, the Death Valley class and the Eastern Sierra workshop. So the Eastern Sierra workshop is coming up next. That's in October. Death Valley is in November. And those are fantastic classes. In fact, the Eastern Sierra, I think we have 2 of our judges going on this one as well. So I only allow 8 people. And every day is critique, and we have a half-day Photoshop class with the class. So it's like a 3.5-day class, so a 4-day class. Any questions?
Have you talked about your San Diego Photoshop users group?
I did in the beginning. I did mention I was the president of the San Diego Photoshop Users Group. When you sign this up here, I will put you on the mailing list, and that's free to join. And you'll be notified of all our meetings.
Is that just geared to advanced or do your meetings?
The meetings are all over the place, and beginning to advance, because all of our not all of our members are advanced. Yeah, a lot of them are beginning. I encourage you. Oh, and you will get 20% off
Of what?
of any of the workshops you guys sign up for from here. Okay. So make sure I get your information. Come on up now and do that. I'm going to stop the recording, and when I'm done